market's ready for a little bit of consolidation right here. It was a big move.
With this kind of volatility.
Volatility is not healthy.
The reason we're on hold is that we think our policy rate's in a good place.
And I think that we have no idea what neutral is at the moment.
Into advancing stocks. We're running out of a little steam, David, but it's been an extraordinary run in the last 10 or 11 sessions. Let's take a look at the sectors that are moving. And you
see financial stocks leading today's sell-off as the yield curve between the 3-month and 10-year Treasury note inverted for the first time since 2007.
The trade tensions between the United States and China put additional pressure on their economy.
If we do the deal with China, then China lives by the deal.
Solo gli accordi firmati qui oggi hanno un potenziale di 20 miliardi di euro.
The world economy is growing more slowly than expected.
Incoming data have continued to be weak.
I profoundly regret the decision that this House has taken.
We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people.
So it's not about technology replacing people. It is about technology augmenting people.
We go to the moon, we want to go to the Mars, we'll see the outside world, but we'll never see the inside of the human beings.
You're more than welcome to do business in Europe, but with our rule book and with no illegal behavior.
Il cambiamento di J.P. Morgan Asset Management. Sapete che stiamo entrando nel secondo trimestre dell'anno e il primo per i mercati è stato un trimestre incredibile, pensate il migliore dal 1998, ma quello che ci hanno fatto vedere i mercati è sostenibile, per usare una delle parole chiave di questo salone, dal punto di vista di quello che nell'economia reale di Europa, Asia, Stati Uniti sta succedendo. Questa è uno degli elementi al centro di questa riflessione che oggi condurremo insieme agli strategist di J.P. Morgan, che vi presento immediatamente a partire da Karen Ward, che è Chief Market Strategist per l'Europa e il Regno Unito. Benvenuta Karen Ward al Salone del Risparmio. È un ritorno dopo l'anno scorso per Karen. Welcome Karen.
Thank you.
E poi abbiamo Maria Paola Toschi, che è Global Market Strategist. È arrivata Paola.
Grazie.
E allora ci accompagnerà però nel corso del pomeriggio anche Tai Hui. Tai Hui è il Chief Market Strategist per quanto riguarda l'Asia e la Cina, in particolare per J.P. Morgan Asset Management, ed è in collegamento dagli studi di Hong Kong di CNBC, quindi lo ringraziamo. Thank you for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Tai Hui. We'll get back to you in a few minutes. We'll get back to Hong Kong. But let me start, Karen, with you. You know, as we speak, the International Monetary Fund is presenting its new outlook. And just a few minutes ago, Madame Lagarde said the outlook of IMF for 2019 is precarious. Precarious due to trade tensions. And these are ones that are self-inflicted to the economy. But what's your outlook on global growth for 2019?
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for having us. It's great to be here again this year. So, Andrea, when I hear people talking about the global economy, I too often see people focusing always on the United States. But we have to stop doing that. Thank you. So if you only remember one thing from me today, let it be this, which is the US is not driving the global economy anymore. Just think about last year. The US was booming. Growth was almost 3%. Did we feel it here? Did you feel it here in Italy? We didn't feel it here in Europe. The global economy slowed down. And that is because what is driving the global economy now is China. China is the impulse to the global system now. And we have to focus on what's happening now in China. So let me show you a few charts to make this point. This is contributions to global growth. The United States is the gray bar. It was really important 20 years ago. It was worth us focusing all our effort on what was happening in the US economy. But it's not so important now. Now it's about the purple bar. That's China. The broader emerging markets are the green bar. That is what is driving global growth. So what went wrong last year? Why was last year so disappointing for the global economy and for markets? It was because China slowed. China slowed last year very badly. Now, they wanted to slow. The next chart shows you that the Chinese authorities were getting worried about debt. They were getting worried about too much leverage in the economy. And they wanted to slow it down. They were particularly worried about the shadow banking system. And this was the blue line on this chart. So they focused on reducing credit. But that reduced projects happening in the economy. And although they wanted the Chinese economy to slow down, it actually slowed a little bit too much, more than they expected. Now, the good news as we look to this year is the Chinese authorities are changing. They are taking their foot back off of the brake and putting it back onto the accelerator. So that is good news as we look forward. But it's not only about China. Whilst the US economy may not be the driver anymore, US politics is increasingly causing us problems. And the trade hostility that's coming from the US administration is causing us a lot of difficulties. The main thing that's happening in reaction to this hostility is that companies are choosing not to invest. The left-hand side chart shows you a business survey from the United States and a business survey from the Eurozone. And companies are telling us they are not going to spend on CapEx. Jerome Powell said, "Uncertainty is the enemy of business." And this is right. Companies, once again, are choosing to wait, choosing not to invest. And that is why, in the last few months of last year, we have had a very industrial slowdown. And that is why it's been felt here in Europe, particularly in Germany, and also in Japan, because it's a capital spending slowdown. So it's really helpful that the Chinese are focused again on stimulating growth. But for this to stage a strong recovery through the course of this year that's felt across the globe, we also need to see these trade hostilities subside. So those are the two things that I'm really focused on in the global economy. As I say, China makes me optimistic. I'm a little less optimistic, perhaps, about the US administration, and maybe that keeps a lid on growth this year.
More political than truly economical. So it's all combined, but we are lucky today because we do have Tai Hui, which is closer than us to China. And so let's get back to Tai Hui. And the first question is about China growth, because China growth has been cut to 6 to 6.5%, but the government put in place a stimulus package, 300 billion. But the question is, will it work? Will it be enough for the condition of the Chinese economy currently?
Well, I think there are a couple of things to bear in mind when we just talk about the deceleration in growth in China. Part of that is structural, because the economy continues to mature. You cannot expect the economy to continue to grow at the same pace as it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So that part is very natural. At the same time, we have the cyclical elements in the past 2 years where the government was deliberately engineering a deleveraging process. They're trying to slow down the rise in debt especially amongst the corporate sector in China. That's absolutely the right thing to do. And at the same time, the uncertainties from US and China trade tension added to that pressure on economic growth in China. So when you think about the causes of Chinese economic growth slowdown, a part of that is deliberate. Part of that is because of US-China trade tension. Now, when it comes to the stimulus, I think the difference between this time round and the previous rounds, for example, in 2008, 2009, or in 2016-17, is that the government is very mindful not to overstimulate the economy. They do not want another debt-fueled boom. They do not want to worsen the fiscal position, especially for the local governments, and therefore, a lot of the policies they've announced so far, they're definitely trying to support the economy, not to decelerate too much. But I think, as you mentioned earlier, if they're happy with 6 to 6.5% growth target for the year, I think that is definitely achievable. So from a stimulus perspective, I think they will be successful, but the magnitude of stimulus is likely to be much more moderate, and I would argue in a much more mature way in execution than previous episodes of economic slowdown in China.
Well, having said that, where do you see strength and weakness? For example, the banking system, we are a bit concerned about that, or the automotive industry in China as well.
Well, I think in terms of the weaknesses, as you mentioned earlier, the car sector has been going through a very painful consolidation. I think it's partly because consumers in China, a lot of them have been buying cars aggressively for the past few years, and therefore there may be a bit of a consolidation. But it is also true that they feel less confident about the future. However, we are still seeing consumers in China, while they may not be buying cars or expensive handbags, they're buying services. For example, more financial services, wealth management, insurance products. They're buying more healthcare for their parents. They're buying more education for their children. So I think it's a transition in how they spend their money. Instead of tangible products or goods, they're spending it more on consumer services, financial, healthcare, education, entertainment, tourism. I think another area of weakness is that a lot of companies are still not using liquidity or capital very effectively, very efficiently, especially the state-owned sectors. I think this will take time for companies to gradually become much more efficient in terms of generating value for shareholders, generating profits. That will come. But I think the strength of the Chinese economy at this point in time continues to rest with the consumers.
Well, you were talking about consumers, and we all know how important they are for the Chinese economy. And there's a strong demographic behind sales, retail sales in China. How can investors look at this growth factor, looking at the medium and long-term investments in China?
Well, I think China is in a very unique situation for a number of reasons. Unlike other emerging markets, its population is actually aging quite quickly because of one-child policy. At the same time, they are going through a very significant income growth and wealth growth that's boosting consumer spending in China. So I think from that perspective, the way we look at China and how we think about investing in China is a couple of things. One is something I mentioned earlier. We're looking for sectors that a middle income group is rotating into. In the past, they would like to buy homes. They would like to buy the first car. They would like to get onto the ladder when it comes to mobile phones or other electronics. But now, instead of buying the tangible goods, they're now looking for experience. So if you look at the tourism flow in the past, you go to Japan, they buy back a lot of electrical appliances, a lot of medicine, et cetera, but now they want to experience a different country's culture and how other people live. So I think that, to me, is a very interesting opportunity when it comes to investing in China. Financial services, that's another area where we know the banks are very large and some of them are not particularly profitable. However, we do see the growing demand for insurance, whether it's life insurance, or health insurance, or car insurance. I think, again, this is an area that we are seeing fantastic growth in the Chinese markets. So I think when we think about investing in China, often people think about the benchmarks, which is going through wild swings, but the reality is you have to dig one level deeper at a sectorial level, or even one level deeper still at the company level to pick the right companies that are feeding off these structural trends in the Chinese economy.
Well, Tai Hui, thank you for this for the moment. So we'll stop here a moment because I want to get back to Karen with the American part. So thank you also. Regia, we'll get back to Tai Hui in a second. Karen, China and the US economy are really tied together. We know they're negotiating, facing each other. And the point is how much the US is dependent from China, and how do you see the US economy, Karen?
Okay, yeah, we'll focus on the US. Before I do, the one stat that Tai didn't mention, which I just think is a fantastic stat, is that if you combine China and India, there are more millennials in those two economies than there are in the whole of the Western world. I just think that's always worth remembering when we think about these emerging markets. But sorry, my mandate is the US. I'll focus on the US for a moment. The US this year is going to slow. There's no question it's going to slow. The only question is how much is the US economy going to slow? Because quite simply, the growth that we enjoyed last year was a sugar rush. It was thanks to the enormous tax cuts that was delivered by President Trump when he took office. What this chart here is doing is showing you how much growth those tax cuts delivered. So they've been giving us about a percentage point, a whole percentage point of growth each quarter. By the end of the year, that stimulus is gone. It's completely worn off. And in fact, we're already starting to see it in some of the data. Consumer spending is already starting to slow because of the benefits of those tax cuts are wearing off. The tax cuts haven't gone away, but people aren't getting increasing income, and therefore they aren't increasing their spending this year. So the US is certainly going to slow, and it's been a very long expansion. And the market will be nervous that the US economy is not only going to slow, but it is going to actually enter a recession. Many of the clips that we saw at the beginning shows there's a lot of nervousness about the next recession. Now, the Federal Reserve have told us in recent weeks they're going to try really hard to make sure the US has a soft landing. In fact, of all the news we've received this year, the most significant news has been this dramatic shift in tone from the US Federal Reserve. Last September, Chairman Powell was talking about how restrictive rates would have to get, how much higher rates would have to go. And now he's talking about patience. So why have the Fed changed so dramatically? Well, I think it's partly this, that wage growth is rising, the purple line, but overall inflation is not. And central banks get really worried about the idea of inflation getting stuck. The lessons of Japan are that when inflation stays too low for too long, people get used to it. They get used to only raising their prices by 1% a year, or not at all. And so the Fed, it seems, are getting really worried about this idea that inflation has got stuck at a level that is too low. So they are thinking about a strategic change. And in particular, what they're saying to us is we've been through a very long period where inflation was below our target. So now, in order to make sure that people believe we can deliver inflation, we should aim for a period of inflation above target. So if inflation has been below target for 5 years, maybe we should aim for inflation above target for a few years. And this is great news for markets. And that is what has caused such an enormous bounce back this year. The market has absolutely understood this message, this change of tone coming from the Fed. So we have gone from now expecting the Fed to be raising rates this year, another 50 basis points, to now the market is expecting them to cut at the first sign of weakness, cushioning the US economy. But the other thing they've told us is that they are going to stop quantitative tightening too soon. By the end of the year, they're actually going to be expanding their balance sheet again. And they're going to be moving increasingly towards holdings of treasuries. And that has, of course, pushed those long-term rates right back down. And they have fallen dramatically in the last 6 months. And the market really likes hearing that we have got liquidity that's here to stay. Because we know quantitative easing, pushing down on government bond yields, makes us search for yield. It pushes us into corporate bonds. It pushes us into equities, because we have to go and find yield. So quantitative easing is very good for risk assets. So overall, what does this mean for the US economy? It is good news. The Fed are going to try their hardest to make sure that the US economy soft lands. They're clearly feeling a bit of political pressure in the mix there as well. But we have to stop thinking that central banks can solve everything. We put far too much pressure on the idea that central banks can always deliver growth. So I think the US economy will slow, but so long as this trade hostility does disappear, then I don't think this year we have to worry about a US recession.
That's very interesting, Karen, especially because the market, yes, they got the message from the Fed loud and clear, and Q1 was terrific from this point of view. At the same time, they remain fragile. Anytime there's a macro data which is behind the expectation, like Friday last week or 10 days ago, the market goes back in a turmoil. And I want to show you, and for all the audience, what Warren Buffett says about the economy in the US. Last week we had an interview, and this is a very short bite. Warren Buffett.
I don't know how many recessions I've lived through, but I was born on August 30th, 1930, and the Dow was a little over 250, and it was, by the time I got out of college, there was only 1 or 2 days after my birth that it had been that high. So I don't know whether I've lived through 8 recessions or 6 recessions or you name it, but that's part of a capitalistic system, and we will have them. And it won't change anything Berkshire either invests in the way of it may offer us more opportunities, but in marketable securities or business. If we see a good business and everybody in the world is that inversion has gone to 100 basis points or something like that, we're going to buy it, and we'll buy it enthusiastically.
Warren Buffett would buy enthusiastically this market, and it is helpful because it gives us a perspective. Maybe his is a secular perspective, but at the same time, Karen, we saw that a few days ago, the yields curve inverted in the US, and just yesterday slipped back in what is considered a normal territory, and the market reaction was, very concerned about the fact that that's a signal that a recession is looming and it's coming in. What do you make of this kind of messages that comes from interest rates?
We have a piece on our website that tackles this question exactly. I think that in a world of quantitative easing, the signal from the bond market is distorted. Just think about why the bond market used to tell us a recession was coming. It was because the long rates were anchored at neutral, reflecting long-term economic growth. So if the curve was steep, it told you that policy rates were low relative to neutral. And if the curve inverted, it told you that policy rates were high relative to neutral. But what was really important to that predictive power was the long end reflecting neutral. The long end does not reflect neutral anymore. It's drugged by quantitative easing. And that means, therefore, the predictive power, using the shape of the curve to predict the economy or markets, I don't think is the right thing. That's not the sole indicator to focus on.
Very interesting, because the reading of the market is also very attentive to this kind of signal. Well, let's get back to Tai Hui to understand what's his point of view on all we've been discussing. Let's see with eccoci qua. Tai Hui, let's get back, because we just heard the perspective of growth from an American point of view, but what do you make of what's happening in Asia from an economic perspective? What the first quarter told you in this sense?
Well, I think 2018 was very challenging for Asian markets for three reasons. A very hawkish Fed and a stronger dollar, US-China trade tension, and also slowdown in the Chinese economy. And really, since the early part of 2019, these three issues have become less of a problem. The Federal Reserve, as Karen alluded to, is taking a more dovish position. US-China seems to be negotiating more, and there are more policy response from Beijing on the slowdown in the Chinese economy. So from that perspective, Asian markets have been trading a lot more positively since the early part of 2019. I think where we need to go from here is for these policies, whether it's from the Fed or from Asian central banks, to really start to take effect, for growth numbers start to improve, for the trade cycle to stop slowing down, which is crucial for Asian earnings. So I think, over April and May, we'll be very closely monitoring macroeconomic indicators and also trade economic indicators to really try to imply where earnings growth is going to be.
Well, the main point is that, yes, also Asian markets did very well year to date, but how about the rest of the year? And you said you are waiting for macro indicators, April and May, but what's your expectation? Have we seen the best of the year, or can we expect rising markets, and how far in the future?
Well, I think if we do get a moderate improvement in the global economic picture, and also some degree of resolution between US and China when it comes to trade tension, I think it does provide a much more constructive backdrop for Asian equities. But quite often we think of Asian equities or Asian markets not only from a short term, but also in terms of some of the long terms, demographics, infrastructure needs, the shift in consumer pattern. All of those, I think, provides a very important impetus to Asian markets, both in the medium and also the longer term.
Well, Tai Hui, as we speak, negotiations are underway between China and US on trade and tariffs, and this prevented many companies to invest. Do you think that?
Well, I think for Asia, it's definitely a market that will reward long-term investors, especially those who are able to pick the right companies. Because if you look at, for example, the Chinese markets or Hong Kong markets, unlike the US, it does go through a lot more volatility. However, if you dissect those markets a couple of levels below the benchmarks, what you'll find is that certain sectors, certain companies are able to ride on structural trends in the region. For example, the rise of consumerism in China, for example, the infrastructure needs when it comes to in Southeast Asia, the deeper penetration in financial services in India, for example. All of these do provide a long-term reward to investors who are able to play the long game.
Well, my point actually was more on how do you think the trade tension will go from here on? Do you think that we are at a turning point, that a deal is pretty close, or this is going to go longer and preventing many companies to make decisions, as Karen told us today, which was a strong burden on the global economy in general?
Well, I think the tension between US and China, there are a number of ways to look at this. Since late November, the G20 summit in Argentina, the good news is that the Chinese and the American governments are in negotiation. And as a result of that, many of the threats of higher tariffs has not materialized. We do expect negotiations to be ongoing. I think both sides are aiming for sometime in April for President Trump and President Xi to sign some kind of agreement. However, I think there are some challenging issues that remains to be resolved. For example, from the US side, they do want the Chinese to really address the issues of intellectual property rights protection, on forced technology transfer and market access for American and international companies. from the Chinese side, they do want the US to actually take out the tariffs before an agreement can be reached. So I think there's still going to be a fair amount of back and forth between the two sides. In the longer term, I think there are still a lot of concerns over the geopolitical economic competition between the US and China. And I think these issues are much more difficult to resolve. It's not specific to the Trump administration. You can see that in Washington, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they do fear the threat of China from a security standpoint, from an economic standpoint. So I think, whoever's going to be the next president of the United States, I think that relationship could remain challenging. So what you see right now is investors are looking not only for the short-term investment ideas, how to so-called play this US-China relationship, but also for the longer term, could we be looking at investing, for example, in ASEAN, in markets like Vietnam and Indonesia, where supply chains could be slowly diversifying away from China into Southeast Asia or South Asia if businesses fear that the relationship between China and US in the long term could remain strenuous.
All right, Tai Hui, let me get back to the Italian panelists here in Milan, and thanks. We'll get back to you in the end of the session. Paola Toschi, how do you see the situation?
Noi dobbiamo contestualizzare questi temi anche per quanto riguarda l'Europa e diciamo che in Europa in quest'ultimo periodo abbiamo ricominciato a parlare di rischi politici. Ce l'eravamo un po' dimenticati, nel 2017 sembrava che la situazione si fosse molto normalizzata, nel 2018 abbiamo visto un po' un cambiamento di questo contesto e diciamo che la lunga crisi finanziaria globale che abbiamo vissuto e che in Europa è stata anche aggravata dalla crisi del debito, ha lasciato un po' una scia di malcontento e spesso gli elettori hanno attribuito i problemi dell'economia europea all'Europa stessa, al progetto europeo, sottovalutando forse che in realtà ci sono tanti temi strutturali ancora irrisolti, come per esempio i bassi investimenti e quindi la bassa crescita della produttività, oppure il debito, e come sappiamo resta ancora il tema irrisolto non solo in Europa, ma tra tutti i principali paesi sviluppati e che quindi ha e porta con sé dei vincoli alla crescita. Però è molto importante, quando parliamo di temi politici e di Europa in particolare, vedere cosa è successo nell'ultimo periodo. Vediamo per esempio che il grado di apprezzamento per l'Europa in questi ultimi anni ha continuato a salire e oggi la percentuale di persone che rispondono alla domanda "siete favorevoli all'euro?" è salita molto, al di sopra del 65% in Italia, che sembra il paese un po' più tiepido da questo punto di vista, addirittura al di sopra dell'80% in Germania. Però indubbiamente abbiamo visto in quest'ultimo periodo che sono iniziati a materializzarsi una serie di movimenti che vengono un po' definiti anti-establishment, no? Movimenti che hanno messo un po' in discussione i partiti tradizionali che hanno dominato, hanno caratterizzato l'Europa in questi anni e questi partiti abbiamo visto che sono nati un po' in tanti paesi. Possiamo citare le situazioni più eclatanti, più importanti. In Francia abbiamo visto come il movimento di protesta dei Gilets jaunes sia stato veramente dirompente alla fine dell'anno scorso, con effetti anche quest'anno. Abbiamo in Germania, siamo alla vigilia di una fase di transizione molto importante, finisce l'era Merkel, finisce anche l'era di quel duo Merkel-Draghi che ha fatto tanto per l'Europa e per ripristinare un contesto di stabilità in Europa. Questo mese, il 28 di aprile, abbiamo le elezioni in Spagna, potremmo vedere ancora una forte frammentazione politica e quindi eventuale ancora instabilità e poi naturalmente abbiamo il caso Italia che è a noi vicino, abbiamo visto come le frizioni ancora all'interno della coalizione, soprattutto anche con l'Europa, abbiano messo un po' sotto pressione lo spread, quindi le condizioni finanziarie del Paese. Perché questi temi sono così importanti per noi noi investitori, lo vediamo in questo grafico. Questo grafico ci sta facendo capire qual è l'effetto di questi temi proprio sul sentiment degli operatori, e questo è avvenuto in particolare nel mondo imprenditoriale, che è stato messo, diciamo, fortemente sotto pressione da queste situazioni di incertezza. Come vedete, gli investimenti continuano un po' a languire, no? Restano un po' in una fase di stallo, e le intenzioni di investimento sono state particolarmente messe sotto pressione. Questo chiaramente è il fattore che per noi investitori è importante monitorare. Tra l'altro abbiamo visto che questo tema è stato più importante per il mondo imprenditoriale rispetto al mondo dei consumi, che invece ha continuato a essere particolarmente sostenuto grazie a un trend della disoccupazione che in Europa, nonostante tutto, ha continuato a scendere. Però naturalmente, parlando di politica, parlando di incertezza, uno dei temi su cui dobbiamo fare ancora qualche riflessione è ovviamente la Brexit, che ha continuato, diciamo, un po' a dominare il contesto di riferimento non solo nel Regno Unito, ma con effetti molto ampi a livello anche europeo.
Brexit. Entriamo nel campo minato di Brexit con la voce della protagonista in queste ore di Brexit, Theresa May.
There is a further risk when it comes to Brexit, as the UK is only one half of the equation, and the votes could lead to an outcome that is unnegotiable with the EU.
Karen, you are in charge of this. What's really happening in London?
Oh, my poor Prime Minister. She had the toughest job. Okay, this is the problem with Brexit. We are utterly divided over what we want. So the vote itself, 52% wanted to leave, but 48% wanted to stay. But then it becomes even more complicated, because even those who wanted to leave want different things from Brexit. So those that wanted to leave, they wanted more control. They didn't like taking things from Brussels. They wanted more control. But control of what? If we think about the 4 freedoms that are flowing through the EU, the principles of the EU, the freedoms in goods, services, capital, and labor. Some people and some members of parliament want control of all of these things. And they want no deal. They don't want Brussels to tell them what to do on any of these 4 freedoms. But for other parts of the population who still voted leave, they maybe have a different opinion about what they wanted to control. Perhaps for a lot of the population, it was about controlling migration. It was about controlling labor. But in terms of goods and services and accepting the rules and regulations set by Brussels, it's not such a strong feeling. So what we are in the process of doing right now is trying to work out what type of Brexit is acceptable. There is no deal. There is a customs union, which means that we can at least continue to have free flow of goods, and that in particular solves the problem of the Irish border. Or, of course, we could maintain full access to the single market through perhaps a Norway arrangement, but that would be ongoing, accepting all of the 4 freedoms. Now, I think what is really important for you to understand is that the number of people or the number of MPs, members of parliament, that actually want no deal is very small. So when you read all the time about how parliament does not like the deal, remember the number that don't like the deal because it is not hard enough. They want no deal. That's very small. Roughly 38 members of parliament in a 650 parliament want no deal. The others don't like the deal because they want a softer Brexit. They want something that is at least a customs union. Now, the difficult thing for the Prime Minister is those that want no deal are on her backbench. They are her MPs, and they're very influential in the party. So it's a little bit like, I have 2 small children, and one of them will not eat broccoli. And there's no way I'm ever going to get this child to eat broccoli. But, it's very hard for me to abandon this child and take somebody else's child who does eat broccoli in order to get through dinner time. But this is the decision that she's facing right now. She needs to go across the House. She needs to use other political parties in order to get this deal through on the basis of a softer Brexit. But this is going to make her very unpopular in her own party. So I don't know how quickly we're going to get there. I think there's going to be lots of ongoing drama along the way. But I don't believe the UK finds no deal acceptable. And I also don't think the EU finds no deal acceptable. So I think we will get there eventually. I just have less conviction when.
So that's your bet. A different deal, but a deal. Do you think that
a softer Brexit, ultimately?
Brexit. Theresa May is playing games with the Labour, lastly, because she's trying to find support. Can this change the situation?
She has certainly made a public appeal for Labour to help her provide a solution. I think the question is whether it's in their interest or whether to try and drive the situation towards a general election. We'll see in the next 24 hours whether they help her or not.
Well, torniamo anche all'Europa, Paola, per capire dentro la nostra economia europea cosa sta succedendo.
Grazie. Sì, abbiamo parlato prima di come questi rischi politici possono impattare sull'economia. Ci torneremo poi nella parte finale facendo alcune considerazioni sull'evento chiave quest'anno e forse anche di questa presentazione, che è legato alle elezioni del Parlamento europeo. Ma un'altra riflessione sempre sull'economia in Europa, anche legata proprio ai temi che abbiamo visto in precedenza, ci mette in evidenza come spesso l'Europa, in questo contesto di moderazione della crescita globale di cui abbiamo parlato, tende a essere un po' più fragile, tende a essere vulnerabile, perché alla fine è condizionata da una serie di fattori sia interni, abbiamo parlato prima anche del debito che ovviamente vincola l'espansione e la crescita, ma anche fattori esterni, perché molte economie dell'Europa sono molto esposte al trend, al momentum globale, e la Germania è un esempio proprio eclatante di questa situazione, proprio in virtù della grande, propensione alle esportazioni che ha questo paese. Questi grafici ci fanno proprio vedere questa situazione, come la Germania, che sappiamo essere ed è stato il motore della crescita in Europa, ha un po' subito questa fase di moderazione, proprio in virtù di questa propensione all'esportazione, che ha molto penalizzato, come vedete nel grafico a sinistra, soprattutto la componente legata ai nuovi ordini all'esportazione. Questo è l'indicatore PMI, proprio che cattura questo andamento, è sceso addirittura ben al di sotto del 50%, e anche i grafici a destra ci fanno vedere, questa fase di vulnerabilità anche dell'economia tedesca a questi temi. E però è molto importante anche capire i settori come sono esposti a questi temi globali di cui abbiamo parlato. I miei colleghi hanno messo in evidenza come ci siano in corso dei dialoghi, delle trattative volte proprio a evitare che ci possa essere un'escalation, per esempio nel tema delle tariffe, quindi della guerra commerciale. Una riflessione merita anche un altro tema che è legato più al settore automobilistico, un settore per l'Europa molto importante, e abbiamo visto a febbraio che il Dipartimento del Commercio americano ha presentato uno studio al presidente Trump in cui si metteva in evidenza come le importazioni di auto e di componentistica di produzione straniera fossero una minaccia per la sicurezza nazionale. Questa è stata una formula che era già stata utilizzata in precedenza in occasione delle tariffe sull'acciaio, quando poi ha dato origine a un aumento delle tariffe. Ora il Presidente ha 90 giorni, quindi alla fine di questo mese, ci aspettiamo che annuncerà qualcosa, si dovrà dichiarare se ci sono evidentemente questi rischi alla sicurezza nazionale, e questo potrebbe dare origine ancora a qualche preoccupazione su un aumento delle tariffe, soprattutto sul settore auto, e qui vediamo in questo grafico come i paesi europei siano fortemente esposti in termini di esportazioni verso gli Stati Uniti, sia a livello generale di zona euro, soprattutto la Germania ovviamente, che è il principale produttore, ma anche l'Europa. Ma io credo che ci sia un tema più importante su cui dobbiamo riflettere. Quest'anno, l'anno del cambiamento, che è un po' diciamo il tema con cui abbiamo inaugurato questa presentazione, si stanno veramente ponendo le basi per tutta una serie di relazioni commerciali che ci saranno nei prossimi anni, forse nei prossimi decenni. Queste relazioni ovviamente sono soprattutto tra gli Stati Uniti e tra la Cina, e capiamo come sia importante in questo contesto che l'Europa riesca a giocare un ruolo chiave, un ruolo importante proprio in questo diciamo scenario in cui le grandi potenze continueranno sempre più a spartirsi proprio l'economia. Ed è quindi in questo contesto, secondo me, che le elezioni del Parlamento europeo quest'anno sono veramente un tema particolarmente importante. Sappiamo che sono a fine di maggio, il 23 maggio inizieranno, sappiamo che si tengono ogni 5 anni, è importante quindi fare qualche riflessione su quello che potrà succedere, perché da queste elezioni dipenderà molto l'agenda politica europea, dipenderà molto anche quel processo di crescita, di integrazione in Europa che abbiamo visto spesso essere messa in difficoltà da alcune situazioni che abbiamo vissuto in questo periodo. Vediamo questo grafico, abbiamo messo in evidenza 3 barre con le ultime 3 elezioni del Parlamento europeo, possiamo focalizzarci sul 2014, l'ultima elezione, e poi abbiamo le prime proiezioni sul 2019, quindi quello che può succedere. Diciamo innanzitutto che tradizionalmente il Parlamento europeo ha visto una forte presenza di alcuni partiti proprio tradizionali, quindi alcuni gruppi pro-establishment. Questi sono, lo vediamo nel grafico, per esempio l'area blu delle barre che abbiamo evidenziato sono il Partito Popolare Europeo, che è stato diciamo il partito di centrodestra che ha un po' dominato, no, nello scenario europeo, e che spesso è stato accompagnato dall'altro partito di maggioranza che è il Partito Socialdemocratico, lo vediamo indicato con il colore rosso-arancione. Questi 2 partiti sono stati diciamo i partiti di maggioranza, hanno sempre espresso per esempio anche il nome del Presidente della Commissione europea, che è l'organo di gran lunga più importante per l'Europa, quello che decide proprio l'agenda politica, l'organo legislativo che propone le leggi che vengono poi approvate al Parlamento europeo. Che cosa ci possiamo aspettare quest'anno sulla base delle prime proiezioni che sono emerse? Innanzitutto dobbiamo dire che ci si aspetta che questi partiti diciamo anti-establishment possano crescere, possano salire, proprio perché lo stiamo vedendo in tanti paesi di riferimento. Però c'è naturalmente un tema molto importante da vedere. I 2 partiti tradizionali, quindi abbiamo detto Partito Popolare Europeo e Socialdemocratico, potrebbero per la prima volta scendere al di sotto del 50%, cioè passare dall'attuale 54% circa al 44%. Comunque ancora diciamo un ruolo estremamente importante all'interno del Parlamento, ma è probabile che debbano cercare delle alleanze, per esempio con un altro partito che vediamo rappresentato, si chiama ALDE, qui è rappresentato con l'area violetta, è un partito moderato di centro-sinistra e questo potrebbe essere diciamo un alleato in questo contesto. Tra l'altro questo partito si è diciamo già alleato anche col partito di Macron, che per la prima volta entrerà nel diciamo Parlamento europeo. Questo cosa significa? Significa che potrebbe essere un Parlamento un pochino più frammentato. Dall'altro lato vediamo che abbiamo tantissimi partiti anti-establishment. Questi partiti sono tutti diversi, di centro-sinistra, di centrodestra, estrema sinistra, estrema destra, hanno tutti delle ideologie molto molto diverse. Forse li accomuna un tema, diciamo, che è quello un po' che preoccupa l'Europa, che è un un po' di euroscetticismo con una diversa gradualità, ma sono partiti così diversi che difficilmente riusciranno a formare una grande coalizione, che è lo scenario che potrebbe maggiormente preoccupare, però non dobbiamo neanche sottovalutarli. Se guardiamo l'area azzurra, sempre di quell'ultima colonna, vediamo che quello è un gruppo di partiti proprio di, diciamo, centrodestra, che sono quelli più euroscettici, e questi partiti, sempre secondo i sondaggi, no, che abbiamo a disposizione oggi, sappiamo che molto spesso poi abbiamo avuto tante sorprese in tema di, diciamo, elezioni, situazioni politiche, l'abbiamo visto con la Brexit, l'abbiamo visto con le elezioni in America, quindi ricordiamo che ci stiamo basando sui primi sondaggi, però questo gruppo di partiti al momento sembra poter raggiungere un 23% rispetto al 25% del Partito Popolare. Questo ci dà proprio la misura di come potrebbero cambiare i rapporti di forza all'interno del Parlamento. Penso che il rischio principale per l'Europa e i mercati naturalmente vogliono stabilità, vogliono una transizione all'insegna della continuità, è proprio che possa esserci un Parlamento un po' più frammentato e quindi un'agenda della Commissione europea un po' più lenta ad affrontare quei problemi anche strutturali e affrontare quel tema di più Europa, che alla fine è il tema un po' che i mercati auspicano, perché va nella direzione di rendere l'Europa più forte e più capace di giocare proprio un ruolo importante in questi scenari globali dove vediamo la Cina, gli Stati Uniti che stanno giocando, diciamo, la partita chiave nei prossimi decenni.
E allora Paola Toschi ha dovuto fare anche la sondaggista oggi per farci capire però che lì si gioca una partita che avrà anche per i mercati, oltre che per la politica a livello nazionale ed europeo, delle conseguenze molto importanti. Io vorrei portare loro e poi anche Tai Hui però a darvi un messaggio alla fine un po' sintetico e conclusivo. So Karen, let me get back with a question to you, because I opened saying, you know, we had a beautiful quarter looking at the markets, but inside economy, what's moving and what you told us can sustain valuation, what the market already discounted, and can you see kind of an acceleration, a rebound in the second part of the year, or will remain like this?
Okay, so prices have rebounded, but earnings expectations have still been coming down. Given where valuations have now got to, for this rally to extend through the course of the year, we need earnings expectations to bottom and start to recover. Now, what's going to help that happen? China is going to help us, tick. The Fed is going to help us, tick. I'm not yet convinced that President Trump and his trade agenda is going to help us. So if we hear over the next couple of weeks there is a grand deal with China, he's not going to come after European autos, then absolutely, through the course of the year, we could see prices go higher. But it's on that third issue, I still need a little bit more convincing. So I'm a little cautious.
Paola?
Abbiamo visto una ripresa dei mercati alimentata chiaramente dai temi che hanno messo in evidenza i colleghi. Da questo punto in poi dobbiamo fare qualche riflessione, tornare quello che di solito chiamiamo i fondamentali e cercare anche proprio di cogliere quelli che sono alcuni temi importanti per quest'anno. Uno è legato, diciamo, più di natura economica ed è legato proprio a quel tema della crescita su cui abbiamo fatto tante riflessioni. Crescita non solo economica, crescita degli utili. Questo sarà secondo me uno dei punti cruciali su cui dovremo riflettere e che condizionerà i mercati da adesso in avanti. Ci sono altri eventi, altri fattori, abbiamo parlato delle elezioni del Parlamento europeo, un tema molto vicino a noi, potrebbe questo essere uno di quei fattori che potrà riportare un po' di volatilità. Da inizio anno la volatilità è bassissima, ben al di sotto della media del lungo periodo e questi potrebbero essere situazioni, eventi che ci riportano, diciamo, un pochettino più di apprensione sui mercati e ci ricordano com'è importante anche provare a costruire portafogli solidi e portafogli che ci aiutino in un eventuale ritorno di un po' di volatilità sui mercati.
Karen, your last takeaway for those and their clients looking ahead?
Don't worry about the yield curve. Focus on corporate capex intentions and whether they start to pick back up or whether employment intentions start to follow. Those are the two indicators to keep your eye on to know whether to extend into this risk rally.
Chiediamolo anche a Tai Hui, ancora in collegamento da Hong Kong, che vogliamo ringraziare prima di salutarlo. So Tai Hui, we are closing the conference, but before letting you go, we would like to understand what's your takeaway. What would you like to leave to the audience here in Milano of Salone del Risparmio?
Well, I think Asia and China are clearly still an area of growth for global investors, and we're seeing a greater interest from Italy, from Europe, from the US in terms of investing in Asia. So definitely do your homework, and we look forward to talking to you more about this going forward.
Tai Hui, it was great having you at Salone del Risparmio. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to meeting you in Milan next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
E allora, grazie ancora Karen, grazie a Paola Toschi e speriamo di avervi dato degli elementi utili per guardare la seconda parte dell'anno a partire da questo secondo trimestre. Grazie a tutti e buon lavoro.